this stuff away now. Don't eat this stuff, Mommy.
What's wrong with you all of a sudden, darling? Daddy made it just for you.
Look inside the cake, Mommy.
I was perplexed by her sudden outburst, but I did what she asked me to do, and I looked inside a cake that her father had made for her birthday. A single glimpse caused me to step back, eyes wide open in fear. I just couldn't believe it. No, I didn't want to believe it.
Mommy, I have to tell you something else.
I immediately slammed the whole cake in the trash and rushed out of the house, my daughter's hand in mine. This is the story of how my family was destroyed in but an instant with my husband's treasonous course of action, and how everything was brought to a peaceful end thanks to, well, him as well, actually. My name is Ariana Lovelace, and I'm a 36-year-old housewife. My husband, Samuel, also known as Sam, is 1 year older than me, at 37. We met 10 years ago through a mutual acquaintance, and since we both enjoyed cooking with raw passion, we became good friends as we exchanged opinions on restaurants and cooked for each other quite often. We started dating a mere month and a half after we initially met. 2 years later, we married, and 2 years after that, our beloved daughter Vivian, also known as Vivi, was born, and we were living a very happy life together. However, after the birth of our daughter, our relationship gradually deteriorated. It was only after we got married that I realized that my husband had a childlike side to his personality. What I mean by that is that he always demands that he be everyone's top priority and can't accept anyone giving someone else more attention than him. He absolutely resented the fact that I was giving top priority to our daughter, and he became grumpier and grumpier with every passing day. And as our daughter grew up, he started coming home late from work, and on his days off, he went out a lot, so he was home less and less of the time. Of course, he didn't take much care of our daughter at all, and we rarely went out as a whole family. The only conversation we had as the years passed was rather sort of business communication, single sentence exchanges such as "I'm not eating at home tonight" and "Alright, your keys are in your jacket pocket," among others, were the norm. While life continued on like this, time flew past as fast as bullets, and before I knew it, Vivi was already in the first grade of elementary school. I knew I couldn't go on like this for her sake, but I didn't know what to do. One day, my husband was out working on his day off, as usual. I was relaxing with my daughter when our neighbor came over to share some fruit from her relative's fruit farm with us. She gave us some oranges, apples, and various other fruits, but there were so many bananas among them, which I decided to make into smoothies to drink, thinking that they would get damaged if not consumed quickly. I think I'll freeze a lot of fruit and use them for your birthday cake, Vivi. Would you like that?
Yeah, my birthday is next month. Don't forget, Mommy.
Oh, how could I forget, darling? While having this conversation with my daughter, I put the bananas, milk, and ice in a blender and made smoothies. I added some chocolate syrup to the mix for Vivi, some peanut butter for myself also.
Looks so good, Mommy. I'm going to drink it all up.
As I was drinking my smoothie at the living room table, looking at my daughter smiling and squealing in a good mood, she suddenly furrowed her brows. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" She started scratching all over her body. Upon closer inspection, I noticed that her body was red and covered in hives. I was so upset by the sudden change that had happened to my daughter, and it got worse when she started to vomit. I hurriedly called an ambulance, and my daughter was rushed to the hospital. Thanks to my quick actions, she was rushed to the hospital, and the immediate treatment given by doctors. Her condition stabilized, and I was so relieved that she was going to be all right. Then my daughter and I underwent a simple allergy test, and it turned out that she was allergic to certain kinds of fruit. I had no allergies, it seemed, but thanks to doctor's explanation, I now know that there are 2 types of allergies. Immediate hypersensitivity reactions are exaggerated immunologic responses occurring in response to an allergen, while a delayed hypersensitivity reaction can happen from 12 to 72 hours after exposure to the allergen. Vivian displayed the characteristic symptoms of the immediate type. It also said that experiencing multiple delayed reactions over the course of some time, where symptoms are often minor, such as skin irritation and fatigue, can evolve into a severe reaction like the one she'd had. Come to think of it, though I hadn't really paid much attention to the cause, I had noticed she often seemed sick that day after eating some fruit. When my daughter was a baby, I gave her fruits little by little to make sure she was not allergic to any of them. But in fact, she has had a runny nose since spring this year. Additionally, she also had a hay fever, and that could have also contributed to her ailment because she ate fruit while she was suffering from hay fever. Her body could have correlated the two allergens, which were altogether different in reality, and programmed her immune system to react to fruit as it did against pollen. The doctor in charge of her while she was hospitalized recommended that we do more advanced allergy tests as soon as possible due to the severity of my daughter's symptoms, and we decided to stay in the hospital for 1 night and 2 days. After completing the procedures and resting in her room, I called Sam. An hour later, he rushed into her room, gasping for breath.
Vivi, darling, are you okay?
He looked at his daughter's face with an expression fraught with concern. I felt uncomfortable at the sight of my husband, to be quite honest, given the situation with our marriage and all, but I didn't have time to think about that as he asked me the details of what happened. But when I told him Vivian was going to be hospitalized and asked him to bring her a change of clothes, I realized why I was uncomfortable seeing him. Perhaps suspicious is a better word. You wore a suit to work this morning. Why are you wearing regular clothes?
I went home and changed.
My husband looked visibly flustered, and I thought that was very strange, but I couldn't ask him any more questions because the doctor had called him in to have him tested for allergies too, just to be sure. Results came back negative. Was not allergic to anything. After the allergy tests were completed for me and my daughter, over the course of the next 30 hours or so, all we had to do was wait for the test results in 5 days. But at the last meeting with her doctor before leaving the hospital, he told me,
The second time she has an allergic reaction to food, her body will not hesitate to launch a full-scale attack and will send her into an anaphylactic shock. This can be very dangerous, so be very careful that she doesn't have any of the fruit she's allergic to.
From that moment on, I made it a rule that my daughter and I would be very careful not to let her eat any of the fruit she's allergic to. 5 days later, the test results came back and both my daughter and I tested positive for many fruits and plants that caused hay fever, such as ragweed and chamomile. Vivian will have to live a long life taking care of her diet, as well as myself. My heart ached when I thought of her. We'll now have to live her whole life being careful about what she eats. Let's not have any fruit on the birthday cake, shall we?
Yes, Mommy. Instead, let's make it with lots of whipped cream. At least I'm not allergic to that.
I wondered what to say to her, who tried her best to be happy, but whose shoulders were shaking at the fact that she would not be able to eat her favorite fruit, strawberries.
Vivi, sweetheart, why don't you make some cookies with Daddy now?
Cookies? At my husband's suggestion, her eyes lit up and her energy was restored at once. I was surprised at the sight of the two of them immediately starting to make cookies, and my eyes started to blur with tears of happiness. I never thought Sam would cheer up my daughter this well and this quickly. I was convinced miracles were a thing now. After her initial reaction, my husband was very concerned about my daughter and said he would help her with her allergies. He used to be so indifferent when my daughter and I were sick, but now he was there for us as if he were a completely different person. I wondered if he had realized how important our daughter is to him because of this incident. I was filled with hope that our marriage might continue to improve. However, reality is never so sweet. My husband quickly resumed working extra hours on weekdays and working on holidays, and the time when he was home became scarcer once again. When he did come home, all he did was look at his cell phone and smile. He must have been working without a break, and he didn't look tired and took his cell phone with him to the shower or to the bathroom. This sight of my husband behaving in such a way made me wonder about one thing in particular. One day, a week after Vivian's reaction, I immediately went to a detective agency to investigate Samuel's behavior. Yes, that's right. Call me dramatic and drastic, but I thought he might be cheating on me. I was told that the investigation would take about 2 weeks, and the results would be sent to my cell phone as soon as they accumulated enough to mount a court case, should it ever come to that. Please let me be mistaken, I thought as I headed home from the agency. The day before Vivi's birthday, Sam was working, as usual, but he came home earlier than usual.
I'll make Vivian's birthday cake tomorrow.
My eyes widened with surprise at his sudden offer. It was such a nice offer, but I have mixed feelings about it, since I had hired a detective agency to do some investigatory work on him and his private life away from home. But I was sure my daughter would be very happy that her daddy made her a great cake for her birthday. So I decided to put a lid on my complicated feelings just for 48 hours and accepted his offer. Thanks a lot, honey. I'll leave the baking to you. I'll make the feast.
Yeah, I'll leave that to you.
And also, I don't think I need to tell you this, but remember not to put any fruit on it.
I know. Well, I'm going to bed to get ready for baking tomorrow. Good night.
He went to his room while I went to the kitchen to prepare tomorrow's feast. An hour later, I was finally finished and ready to head to bed. When I walked past his room and heard him talking to someone inside, it must have been an urgent business call. I thought so at the time. How could I have known this would later lead to a major incident that could have almost had catastrophic consequences? And then morning came, and Vivian had turned 7 years old. Happy birthday, Vivian! I cheerfully greeted her when she walked into the living room, but for some reason, she seemed to be in low spirits. I asked her what was wrong, but she didn't tell me, and I immediately got pretty concerned. But my husband, oblivious to my daughter's temperament, had been hard at work all morning baking an admittedly fabulous cake. And when the cake was finished, and I was preparing some plates for freshly baked cake to eat, there was a call on Sam's cell phone.
Sorry, it's work. Go ahead and eat some without me.
I see him off to his room, put the plate on the table, and say, "Well then, let's eat, Vivi, darling." And as I'm about to eat the first bite, I noticed my daughter started scraping the wall of the cake with the fork. "What are you doing, darling?" Her expression was serious, as if she knew something was wrong about the cake, and I was puzzled. Then she looked at me dead in the eye, a look of a terrified shock on her face, as if she had found something, and raised her voice.
I knew it! Throw this stuff away now! Don't eat this stuff, Mommy!
What's wrong with you all of a sudden, darling? Daddy made it just for you.
And look inside the cake, Mommy.
My daughter pointed at the cake with a serious expression on her face. I was perplexed by her sudden outburst, but I did what she asked me to do, and I looked inside the cake that her father had made for her birthday. A simple glimpse caused me to step back, eyes wide open in fear. I just couldn't believe it. No, I didn't want to believe it. There was a huge amount of fruit cut into small pieces. The pieces were covered with whipped cream, and I would have not noticed them if I had eaten them without checking. Why? I was so puzzled that I blurted out that word, and Vivian told me a shocking truth.
I heard him, Mommy. Daddy was on the phone with someone last night, and he said, "I'm going to put in a lot of fruit, like you said, to make them disappear.
I was speechless with surprise, and at that moment, I heard the door to my husband's room open. I looked at my daughter, slammed the whole cake into the trash, and rushed out of the house and ran out of it, my daughter's hand in mine. I hurried to the cab stand to go to my parents' home. Samuel kept calling me, but I ignored him. As I was heading over there, I texted my parents, and they told me that they were on their way to deliver their granddaughter's birthday present. Since I happened to be in the neighborhood when they texted back, I met my parents, and we decided to go to their house, together in their car. Mom, Dad, I'm sorry for the short notice.
It's all right, sweetie. Don't worry about it.
Dad's kind words almost brought tears to my eyes. But I couldn't cry in front of my daughter. I held back my tears and got into the car when I noticed that the results of the investigation had arrived from the credit agency. I rushed to check it and found a report containing the most devastating results. My husband had been seeing the woman after work and on his days off, with photographic evidence to back it up. This confirmed that my husband was cheating on me. I knew it. Dad, who was wondering what was wrong with me, looked at the screen and saw the photos of my husband's affair.
What the hell is this? Maggie, change of plans. Set destination for Ariana's house.
What? Why?
I just can't keep quiet about my daughter and granddaughter being put in danger and even getting stabbed in the back. Turn around, Maggie. We're doing this.
He was furious like a demon, and Mom, who was driving the car, was so determined to listen to him that she drove to my house as though she was in pursuit by many men in black. When we arrived home and barged inside, Sam rushed to the front door, and immediately his expression went from surprise to anger to fear.
Why are Mr. and Miss?
That's not important, Samuel Lovelace. They're more interested in hearing you explaining this to me. I slammed the evidence of the affair down on the table in front of my bewildered husband. He looked at me wide-eyed, shook his head, and denied it adamantly.
No, I'm just good friends with this woman from work. I'm not having an affair with her.
Then what about this cake? I told you not to put any fruit in it, for God's sake. It could kill your own daughter, Sam.
I thought it would be alright if I covered it all with cream.
He desperately tried to cover his crimes up when my father's patience ran out before mine. He exploded, grabbing my husband and yelling at him as Sam tried to break himself free.
You're still talking like that? In this moment of hopelessness? Shame on you! Mr. Whitelock, this is a misunderstanding.
If you don't tell me everything right now, I'll call the police. My husband's face turned into the bluest blue, and he started to tell me everything. He told me that he had been seeing this woman about for 4 years, and she had been asking him to divorce me for quite a long time so that they could get married. My husband wanted to divorce me as soon as possible, but when she started thinking about how to do it without paying alimony, the whole thing regarding Vivian and I having a life-threatening allergies came about. He eventually told the woman, whose name, by the way, was Lucia Tanning.
Then she told me this. All you have to do is make them have an allergic reaction and erase them from our lives. Then we wouldn't have to pay alimony, and we could get the insurance money too.
Sam then pretended to be a more responsible husband and father for us so that he wouldn't look suspicious in preparation of doing it. I'm deeply disappointed that he would do something like that to me, let alone my daughter.
You gosh damn bastard! You're a disgrace as a husband and father, and you deserve all the punishment the world has to offer. No, I just did what she told me to do. Please. I didn't want to do this.
No excuses. Don't make me look like I'm just a stupid bitch. Do you really think that Vivian can see you as her daddy after what you did? You ought to be ashamed of yourself. At the mention of his daughter's name, Samuel Lovelace stopped making excuses and collapsed into a heap. I immediately called the police, and he was taken away as my daughter and I watched. Oh, Vivian, darling, I'm so sorry you had to go through this on your birthday.
I want to eat the cake you said you'd make me, Mommy. With lots of whipped cream?
Of course, honey, of course. I'll make you a proper cake. Then we went to the police station to answer some of their questions. After that, the divorce was finalized, with both of us having lawyers present. At the time, my ex-husband's lawyer proposed a settlement, which I resisted at first, but I agreed to it because I wanted to get out of the relationship with Sam as soon as possible. As a result of negotiations, the settlement was about $8,200,000, which was paid in a lump sum by my ex's parents-in-law, who felt responsible for raising my ex-husband that way. I really cannot understand why they would think they are raising to become someone capable of attempting such an atrocious crime. But then again, if one's circumstances are bad enough, anyone could become a criminal. Perhaps they thought they hadn't provided him with the mental resilience that would have ultimately stopped him from resorting to committing such a crime. But how could they have known? Mrs. Lovelace apologized to me, pretty much bawling, and her husband joined her. I begged them to dry their tears, for they did nothing wrong as far as I was concerned. After reaching a settlement and receiving an apology from Samuel, he was released from jail on a suspended sentence for attempted murder. I heard that if a settlement was done after an apology to the victim was fully made, the charge could potentially be reduced, and the punishment would thus be alleviated. I don't forgive him for what he attempted to do at all, but when I think of my daughter, I forced myself to agree that this was the right thing to do. The woman with whom he had an affair, Lucia Tanning, was charged with malice aforethought, and since she showed no signs of remorse in her trial, she was sentenced to prison. I couldn't help but hope that she would serve a long time as possible, and the fact that she was given more than a decade made me feel better. A month passed quickly after Vivian's birthday, and my in-laws came to apologize again and got down on their knees before me and my daughter. Again, we had no anger towards them. They immediately raised their heads. My in-laws told me that Samuel is now in a rehabilitation facility where he had been monitored. I can only hope that he's shown some remorse and is now making an effort to less prone to resorting to extreme situations. As of now, a few months have passed since then, and I am now studying to become a certified allergy food advisor. This certifies that I have acquired enough knowledge to give advice on how to plan and prepare allergy-friendly meals for children. I decided to study this certification because I wanted to help other parents who are struggling with the same thing as I, while making allergy-friendly meals for my daughter.
Mommy, let's bake a cake together.
Okay, I'll make you a cake with lots of whipped cream, just like the one you had for your birthday. From now on, I plan to live peacefully while dealing with my daughter's ailment, and I will do my best to make sure she has the fullest, happiest life I can offer her.